All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Rutgers Earth Day at Home seminar series on a Tuesday. But we are normally on a Monday, right? Most of those of you who have been with us for the past few weeks know that we usually run this session on Monday evenings, but because of the holiday, we're meeting on Tuesday. I'm Michelle Backus with Rutgers Cooperative Extension. And for those of you who are not familiar with Rutgers Cooperative Extension, Rutgers Cooperative Extension is the outreach arm of Rutgers University. We are a partnership between the university and the counties that we serve. So there's a Rutgers Cooperative Extension office in every county in the state, except for Hudson County, but we do still do programming there. So we provide science-based education, research-based information to the public on a whole host of topics, and you should definitely reach out to your local cooperative extension office if you have questions or need answers on some problems that you have. So the purpose of this Earth Day at Home webinar series is to give folks ideas about some of the things that we can all be doing at home to help improve the environment. Everything from outdoor landscape care to tonight we'll be talking about reducing plastic waste. We have another session next week on how you can avoid invasive plants in your yard. The idea is to give you ideas about what you can do and take action at home to help improve the environment, starting in your home landscape. So the way, if you haven't been with us before, if you are all muted, and you will stay muted. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, and the chat box is on the right-hand side, and it should say chat. There's an arrow on there that you can just expand and put your questions in there. And then at the end of the session, we are going to have a poll, some questions that we will be asking you. If you're hearing a sort of really annoying beep on your end, that is folks who are coming online. I apologize for that beep. We thought we had taken care of that, but I guess those settings did not take. So hopefully you can tune out that beeping sound. I also want to let you know that these Earth Day at Home sessions are free, but we are asking folks to consider making a donation to the Rutgers Environmental Steward Program so we can continue to offer this type of online programming. We will put information in the chat box on where you can donate to the program. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce Casey Lippincott, who is with us from the New Jersey AmeriCorps program. She is one of our New Jersey Watershed Ambassadors. She's actually the Watershed Ambassador for Watershed Management Area 17, which is the Morris, Salem, and Cohansey rivers, and she's going to talk to you all about that. And she's going to be talking to all of us tonight about how you can be reducing your plastic use at home. So, Casey, if you're ready to go, I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So, like Michelle said today, I'm going to go over just a few things on plastics, how they end up in our environment and our marine ecosystem, and then I'm going to go a little bit into what we can do to decrease our plastic use. Sorry about that. So to start off, I'm just going to give a little background about me and the program. So I am in an AmeriCorps program, and AmeriCorps is a network of national service programs where members commit their time to address critical community needs. And my program is hosted by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, so that's where all of our data goes. And basically the purpose for the New Jersey Watershed Ambassador program is to educate the community on the importance of water, watersheds, and water pollution and conservation. So just like what I'm doing today. So I have to ask this question in every presentation that I do. What is a watershed? What's the point of me teaching everybody about watersheds? And watersheds are areas of land where water moves from higher elevations to lower elevations, and then that water will drain into a bigger water body. So in this picture, all of the water that's hitting that section of land is actually going to end up in the stream, but those streams flow into that bigger river. And it's really important when I talk about watersheds and I educate the public that I emphasize that whatever happens on land is going to affect the water. So whatever you put down on your land, whatever is going on the land is eventually going to affect the water because of things like watersheds. So my first question I want to ask you guys, and you can put your answers in the chat box, is do you think you live in a watershed? So you can write yes or no in the chat box. Okay, I see a lot of yeses. Amazing. Great.
Maybe they've heard you speak before.
Yes. I'm hoping you guys are just copying off of everybody else's yeses. But everybody does live in a watershed. But in New Jersey, we have 20 different watershed management areas. So basically what I was saying before, water moves from higher elevations to lower elevations. So the geographic regions of New Jersey are dependent on what watershed management area you live in. So New Jersey has 5 watershed regions, like you can see in that left-hand picture there. And then those regions are broken up into the 20 different watershed management areas. And we have a watershed ambassador assigned to each of those regions. I am the watershed ambassador for W17, so that's that bright pink on the bottom left of that right map. So now I want you guys to go in the chat. If you're from New Jersey, you can write down where you think you live, what number watershed management area you live in. And if you're not from New Jersey, you can just put wherever you're from, wherever you're listening in from. Great, we have a great range. I see a lot of 9s, the Raritan area. Beautiful, beautiful. So basically what these different areas mean is that the water that hits New Jersey is going to drain into different parts. So like people were saying, they're from the Raritan area. So all of your water that hits your land will end up into the Raritan River and eventually go out into the ocean. And then we have the Atlantic coastal watersheds. All of the water will eventually drain into the Atlantic Ocean. And then my watershed is the lower Delaware. So our water moves from the Morris River, the Salem River, and the Cohansey River, all go into the Delaware Bay, and then eventually out into the ocean. So does anybody have any questions about what I just talked about? No questions?
So far, I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, perfect.
But folks should go ahead and ask them in the chat if you have them. Okay, I'll interrupt you if there are more.
All right, sounds good. So moving on with just a little bit about what the watershed ambassadors do. For water specifically, we do field assessments. So we go out into our local streams. I go out into the watershed management area 17 streams that are given to us by the New Jersey DEP. And we don't do a lot of chemical assessments, mainly just looking at turbidity. But for visual assessments, we'll measure the stream banks, measure the width, the depth, the velocity, and check to see what type of habitat is available. And then we'll do a biological assessment using benthic macroinvertebrates. And these tell us whether the water quality in that area is good or bad. And that in turn helps us determine whether there's something that needs to be changed on the land, because like I said before, everything that happens on the land is going to affect the water. So if we have poor water quality, something needs to be changed probably in the areas around that stream. So, and we also do, normally, we do a lot of partnership projects, and these just help our water quality. So we do things like tree plantings, trash cleanups. That left bottom picture is one of our ambassadors, Haley. She did dune planting, she was the species removal, and rain barrel workshops as well. So usually we do all of these things in the fall and the spring. Fortunately, we weren't able to get to all of our plans, but next year is waiting for us, and it'll be just as good. Okay, so I'm going to move on to plastics now. So as everybody's okay, right? We don't have any questions?
Right. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So I just want to go into some basics first. So plastics are man-made polymers made of different, one man-made polymer made of different monomers linked together. So I like to use Legos to show this because I feel like it's the easiest. So monomers are the single Legos. They're the single molecules that you don't build anything with just that single one. But when you put multiple monomers together, when you put multiple Legos together, you form a monomer. Polymer, sorry. Oh, mixing myself up. So multiple monomers linked together will make a polymer, okay? And there are natural polymers that are in the world. We have wood, natural rubber, sugar, and wool. But synthetic polymers are the ones that are chemically made, like plastic, nylon, and slime. And they last a really long time. They're super flexible. They're strong, heat resistant, which is great when you need it for a specific type of thing. But it can cause problems in the environment, which is why we're here today. So Michelle told me she sent out an email prior to this workshop asking everybody to look up what they can recycle in their county, what numbers of plastic they can recycle. So if you guys want to just put in the chat what county you're from and what numbers you can recycle in your county, that would be great. I see a lot of 1s and 2s. I see some 5s. I see 1s through 7. When in doubt, throw it out. Great. Perfect. Okay, so basically what all of these different numbers means is those plastics are different monomers, or polymers. Sorry, I get them mixed up. So a number 1 plastic is a different polymer than a number 2 plastic, and that's why you can't recycle all of plastics, because they are made up of different chemicals. So just like I was saying, plastics, you can usually find the little numbers on the bottom or on the side, but it just means what it's typically made of. And we've only been using plastic for about 70 years, I would say, but we produce around 300 million tons of plastic each year, which is pretty crazy. So we have a lot of it, which is the problem. And almost 10% of recyclable plastic is actually recycled. So like what somebody mentioned, when in doubt, throw it out. A lot of times that's what people do. They don't really know what they can recycle or what they can't, so they just throw it out because they don't want to make a mistake. But I highly suggest, if you haven't already, to look at your county's recycling guidelines, and they can tell you exactly what plastics you can recycle and how to properly recycle them, so that all the effort that you're putting into this is making it worth it. And another thing too, 50% of plastics that are produced are usually single-use plastics, so that's like your straws, your containers, and a big portion of that is just plastic packaging that comes on different items that either get shipped or that you buy at the store. Okay, so now we're getting into microplastics. So since plastic polymers are chemically made, no organic organisms are made to break them down completely. So they don't decompose very quickly. So a giant piece of plastic will turn into a bunch of microplastics. And microplastics are just defined as a piece of plastic less than 5 millimeters, so a half of 1 centimeter. And there are two different types of microplastics. We have primary microplastics, which are made to be that size. They break down over time. They're plastic. And some examples of these are like microfibers, so that's what you would find on clothing. That is more like a nylon, like I was saying before, polyester. Those are microfibers, those are microplastics, those are primary microplastics. And then we have microbeads, which are usually found in cosmetics. Actually, in 2015, Obama passed a ban, the Microbead Free Water Act. So companies aren't allowed to produce cosmetics with microplastics in them anymore. I'm pretty sure you could still find some products on the shelves that still have microbeads inside of them, but legally, the United States is not allowed to produce microbeads anymore, which is a win for us. And then last, we have nurdles. Nurdles are pre-production plastics. So this is what you would melt down to form water bottles, toys, whatever you're trying to make. They start off as these small, little kind of rice-sized plastics. And they're a big problem too, because in these big factories where they're washing down the machines just on a regular basis with hoses and stuff, those plastics can easily be caught in the drain system and not captured because of how tiny they are. But we'll get into that in a little bit. And then we have secondary microplastics, and these are plastics that degrade into microplastics. So they've been wearing and tearing for a few years, and they come from things like large plastic debris, that's our water bottles or anything else like that, fishing gear. And the #1 secondary microplastic that's been found is actually eroding tires, which is pretty interesting. Tires are a major source of microplastics just from the abrasion on the roads. So it's really important to make sure you're getting new tires, checking on them frequently to make sure they're not too worn down, because that just increases the amount of plastic going into the road.
Casey?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you with one or two questions?
Of course you can.
Oh, okay, so one question is, where can we find out what specific body of water our town, neighborhood, property, or property drains to?
Okay, great question. If you want to go to, just the DEP's website and type in watershed management areas, usually it'll bring you up to an interactive map, and you can click on where you live, and it'll show you all of the different streams and rivers that flow out of your watershed area. And you can also find out who your watershed ambassador is that way too. So if you go on to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's website, or just type in NJDEP Watershed Management Areas, an interactive map should pop up, which is pretty helpful.
Great, okay. And also another question, because you mentioned that it's maybe possible to still find microbeads in products. Has the microbead ban been ignored or not prosecuted by the current administration?
I don't think it's been ignored. When I read into the ban earlier this year, I did see that after a certain time, production had stopped, but they could still sell what was already made because they didn't want to waste all of it. So I think there's probably some products still out there. The ban was in 2015. I would have to look more in detail to it, but I just mean there's probably still some excess product that just wasn't sold yet after the fact of the ban.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Cool. And now I want you guys all to get out your pieces of paper and a writing utensil. We're going to do a short activity. So like I said, plastic takes a really, really long time to break down because it's not organic, it's chemically made. So I just wanted to do a quick exercise to kind of get everybody thinking of how long things take to actually break down. So on your piece of paper, I just want you to draw a straight line. If you hold it horizontally, just draw a straight line with an arrow going to your right, and we're going to draw a timeline. And in this timeline, we're going to I'm going to put up in a second a list of, I think it's 14 different objects. Not all of them are plastic, but they're just common household items that you might use on a daily basis. And I want you to put in order how long you think they take. So with the shortest amount of time on the left going to the highest on the right. So I gave you guys some hints. Newspaper takes about 6 weeks to biodegrade, and then a tin can takes about 50 years to biodegrade. So that just gives you kind of an idea of where we're going. So I have these 14 items, and I want you guys to use your timeline and kind of figure out where you think each of these items would go in correlation to each other. So I'll give everybody a few minutes to kind of think this over. And if you don't get to all of them, that's fine. So even if you haven't finished your list, I know it probably will take a little bit longer for you guys to write them down, but I want you to write in the chat what you think takes the shortest amount of time to break down, and then put a comma, and then what you think takes the longest amount of time. So I want to see the shortest and the longest in the chat box. Okay, I got a lot of people saying apple core.
I saw one paper towel as the shortest.
Okay. I have a lot of styrofoam cup as the longest, some plastic rings, plastic bottles. I see somebody did newspaper first. Great. These are all great.
It seems like there's some agreement on what people feel is the shortest, but not necessarily the longest.
Yeah. You guys are all heading in the right direction, though, which is great. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to show you the timeline now. I just want to let everybody know these are all estimated values. They're not, some of them can't be super specific because people don't last as long as plastic, so you can't actually outlive them. But here is the actual timeline for how long things take. So we had a few people that were right with paper towels, so good for you. Apple core takes about 2 months to break down. Paper towels take about 2 to 4 weeks. A cardboard box, wax milk carton, plywood. So a styrofoam cup takes about 60 years. Styrofoam is a form of plastic. And then we have an aluminum can. A 6-pack plastic ring takes about 400 years. And then we have a disposable diaper, takes 450 years. Plastic bottle, same time, around 450 years. And then we have the monofilament fishing line, which is just your regular plastic fishing line. That would take about 600 years. And these are all estimated values. Obviously, nobody lives 600 years old or until they're 600 years old. So it's hard to say exactly when these things break down, but they do take a few hundred years. My favorite thing is the disposable diaper, though, because that blew my mind that all of the diapers that we've ever had outlive all of us. So it's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions about this before I move on?
So there are, there's one question. Do wastewater treatment facilities, do they filter microplastics?
So that's one of the problems that we're going to talk about in a second. That plastics are straight through their filtration systems, but it's something that we can't really fix, which is one of the problems. But I'll get into some ways that we can kind of combat that in a second.
Okay. Also, clothing that releases plastic microfibers, are there some clothing that release more plastic microfibers than others?
Yeah, so that would be just something that you would have to look up what your clothing is made out of, if it's made out of mostly plastic fibers or if it's made out of more organic fibers. I don't know if more clothes shed than others. That's just something to experiment yourself, but I will get into how to combat that as well at the end.
Okay. Okay, some other questions. So what is the issue with the, wait, I'm sorry. Is there a list of these items on a website?
I got a similar timeline to this. I just Googled marine debris timeline, and I was able to find some examples, but I made up this timeline myself.
Okay, and then I believe there is a question about like packaging, and I think you're going to get into more of that later on. Maybe we'll hold off on that question. Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So I do want to start off by saying that microplastics are very new for scientists. They haven't been doing a lot of research on them because they haven't found them that often until the last like 3 to 5 years. They've been finding them more and more. So all of this research is fairly new, so I just wanted to put that out there. But microplastics have been found basically everywhere. They've been found on the tops of mountains. Just like I was saying with the microfibers, our clothes can shed these microfibers, and that can be transported through wind. Some studies have shown that microplastics can be carried by rain too, and that brings us to the watersheds, why it's so important that all of our land is clean so that our water is clean as well, because microplastics are washed off the land by the rain or the snow, and it brings it to oceans, rivers, lakes. And microplastics have also been found in some icebergs and deep sea trenches. Certain plastics can't float, they sink, while others, most of them do float, but just like I was saying before, different types of plastics are made out of different materials. So some can float, some can sink, and these are found all throughout the ocean. So I really like this picture. Doesn't make me happy, but I like showing this because it really does show how different plastics can enter the ocean and what they can do. So this is a picture by NOAA, and I just put a fun fact about a garbage truck full of plastic makes its way into the ocean every minute of every day. And that's through all of the different things that I was talking about, whether it's just people littering, rain and wind, and things like that. So that brings me into the ocean garbage patches. People have probably heard of this before. The biggest one is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and basically what these garbage patches are the ocean gyres around the world. So we have 5 gyres, and they are large circulating currents because of how the wind and the earth rotates, and plastics are easily accumulated within these gyres. Sorry, sometimes I say gyres, sometimes I say gyres. But they break down in these gyres as well. And some people might be like, okay, well, just go and scoop up all the plastic. But like I was saying before, these gyres are kind of like a vegetable soup. All of the plastic is kind of just continuously mixing, and it goes up and down through the water column. Some plastics sink, some plastics float. So you can't just go and scoop up all of these plastics because we don't know exactly where they are in the water column, and we also don't want to disrupt marine life. Some marine life lives on the surface, but they live all throughout the water column. So it's pretty tough to integrate plastic collections. I know that Clean Ocean Action, I think, somebody's doing a huge conveyor belt where they bring in all the plastics, and that's working, but that experiment has only been going on for a few months. Do we have any questions right now?
No, there's just been some comments and discussion, sidebar discussion. There's a comment that the film, The Story of Plastic, is a great film that really shows the issue. Great,
love it. All right, so after plastic enters our waterways, what happens to it? Where does it go? So the first picture on the top left is actually a coral reef, and it's a host. It's actually growing around this plastic bag that was in the ocean, and then some algae is just growing on it now. And then that second picture is a zooplankton. So zooplankton, if you don't know, are one of the smallest marine organisms, and they often mistake microplastics for small animals, which they would eat. So microplastic, if you point, I think it's a black light on plastic, it will glow for the most part. So in that picture, you can see all of those glowing little specks are all little pieces of microplastic in the zooplankton. And we'll get into why that's bad in a second. Scientists have also found microplastics in bottled and tap water. And then I'll get into this, but part of it starts to become part of the food web as well. So if a zooplankton eats plastic, that's obviously going to affect the food chain because it's the smallest organism on that food chain. So. Okay, and then we have POPs. So I don't know that much about these persistent organic pollutants, but I wanted to include it in here because I thought it was pretty important. So like I said before, the study of microplastics is fairly new, and more work is definitely needed to understand what extent microplastics are affecting humans and animals. But what scientists do know is that the chemicals found in plastics can cause hormone problems, lung and liver problems as well. And these POPs, these persistent organic pollutants, are absorbed into plastic. And they're from past dumping, spraying, stormwater runoff. It's any type of dangerous chemical, basically. Something I like to compare it to is some plastics are made with certain toxins as well, such as BPAs and phthalates. So I know a lot of the times people have heard not to leave their water bottle sitting in a hot car because then some dangerous chemicals can seep into your water from those plastics. So that's basically what POPs are. Okay, so this is where we get into bioaccumulation and biomagnification. So like I was saying before, those tiny zooplankton mistake microplastics for food. And then they also feel this false fullness. So that's a whole separate problem with the zooplankton. But if all of these zooplankton are eating all of these small plastics, then just like in that second picture, the herring or the medium-sized fish are eating a bunch of these smaller fish. So all of those plastics are now accumulating in them, and then it just goes up to the larger scale like the orcas or the salmon, and there'll be more plastics in those animals because they're feeding off of the smaller animals that are mistaking microplastics for food. Kind of confusing, but so basically bioaccumulation is the buildup in the tissue of an organism faster than the rate of excretion. So if a zooplankton is eating 2 microplastics a day, but it's only excreting 1, then that's bioaccumulation. Biomagnification is increasing the toxins in the food chain. So like I was saying, the small fish gets eaten by the medium-sized fish and then the big fish. So as animals lower on the food web consume microplastics, they bioaccumulate those microplastics. And then as you move up the food web, more microplastics are coming through the food web. This increased amount of microplastic in animals higher on the food web is called biomagnification. I know that can be kind of tricky to understand, but does that make sense to everybody in the chat? Do we have any questions right now? Michelle, are you muted? Sorry.
Yes, I am. I apologize.
It's okay.
There is a question, but it's not necessarily related to this. So when you're done summarizing this, then I can. Okay.
All
right. There is a question. I take it back. There is a question.
Okay.
They're rolling in now. One question is, well, what can we do about this? And now you're about to get into that, so that's good.
Perfect.
And another question is, do you know of any studies where we found that biomagnification takes place with humans?
Well, like I said before, scientists are it's very new to scientists what the effects of microplastic has on humans. I don't know how many studies, honestly, have gone into it, but I'm sure if you just look up microplastic effects in humans, there's a lot of studies that show certain things with shellfish and how that affects our digestive system and stuff, because shellfish, like clams and shrimp, hold these microplastics in their tissue. But like I said before, and I keep reiterating it, but I think it's really important to know that all of these studies are fairly new, but it is really important to talk about it because we need to educate everybody else and continuously learn and develop. So I hope that answered some part of your question.
Okay, and so then another question, which you also may be starting to get into here, is there, or can you recommend an appropriate strategy to determine like an inherent disposal cost to the production of plastic, and so basically comparing whether or not it's worthwhile, basically, production of plastic versus its disposal cost?
That's really interesting. I haven't ever really looked into that before, but it's very interesting. I know some companies, plastic is just easier and it's cheaper, so I don't really know in detail or in depth that answer, so I'm really sorry, but I know sometimes people just pick plastic just because it's a lot cheaper and it's easier to just dispose of something than to wash it and reuse it. So if that kind of answers your question.
Okay, well maybe that person can clarify his question a little bit more.
We good then?
Yes, that's all the questions for now.
So now I'm going to get into what we can do. That was all kind of sad, so let's spark some positivity here. The first 3 things I want to talk about is the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. And I put them on the bottom just because we all know them, all right? We all know that we have to reduce the amount of plastic that we're using. We all know we have to reuse things and recycle them. But I like to add in these next 3 R's because I think it makes this whole process a lot easier. The first being refuse. So I state that as refusing single-use plastics, and that's your straws, your bags, anything like that. This also can be used for packaging too. So a lot of people don't think of single-use plastics as your packaging, but if you think about when you go to the store and you have to unwrap everything, or if you order things and it comes in this giant plastic packaging, that's all single-use packaging. So first step in our 6R step is refusing. Then repair. So if an item breaks, most people just throw it away. It's useless to them. They don't want it anymore. I encourage all of you to repair any items that might be easily repairable, like say a children's toy, and instead of just buying a new one and putting that old one in the trash. I think this one's really important because a lot of the times if a piece of material breaks, it can be easily fixed instead of you just grabbing something new. And then rethinking. So thinking of things that are more environmentally friendly, or thinking to yourself, do I need what I'm about to buy? Is it going to benefit me in the long run? So those are the 6 R's that I like to talk about. And then I add in education, because education is my favorite tool into getting people to understand and make an impact. If people don't understand where you're coming from when you tell them, don't use a single-use plastic, they're not going to do it. So I encourage all of you to educate others. This is what really makes the impact, and knowing what the problem is so you can have a solution. Now, don't go around bossing people around. I sometimes do that and I find myself in a pickle, but I just want you to encourage others, educate others about what you learned today so that you can help them out as well. So now I'm going to get into some things that you guys can do at home now that you're stuck in quarantine. There are plenty of things that you can get involved in. So first thing that I always tell people to do when they are looking to decreasing their plastic use is to assess your waste and prioritize. So I just made up this list here, but I want you to go home. If you're not home, you should be, but go home and write out a list of what you're throwing away every single day and do a tally. So in this case, we have paper towels, coffee cups, a granola bar wrapper, tissues, deodorant packaging, and coffee grounds bag. So in this list, this person purchased coffee from a cafe every single day. So instead of them buying coffee and using that packaging, their solution would be making coffee at home. Okay? So just something as simple as writing things down can really get you, it can really open your eyes to where all of, one, your money is going, and two, what is actually going into your trash. Because you don't realize on a day-to-day basis, but really writing it down can help you prioritize where you want to start. So in this case, that person started with their coffee cups. So I'm now going to get into 3 different categories of different solutions you guys can do at home. First one being eating and drinking out. So the easiest, where's mine? The easiest thing I encourage everybody to do right away is to get yourself a reusable water bottle. This one I have is a, you probably can't see it because the sun is shining so bright, but I just have a Yeti water bottle. I got it as a gift. It's really expensive, but you don't need an expensive water bottle at all. I like this one because it has the double lining, so it keeps things hot or cold. I put a little straw on the top of mine because it's easier to drink out of. But if any of you guys are Marshalls or Home Good fans, just like me, they have great water bottles there, double line, just like Yeti water bottles, and they're probably 1/3 of the price, if not half. Second, reusable coffee cups. My coffee cup looks like a Yeti, but I saved money on this one. So I just have another double-lined coffee cup. But I know, say your favorite place to go is Starbucks. They have reusable coffee cups, I think, pretty cheap. And then they have some more expensive ones too, depending on what you want them made out of. But you can, I know some places when you go to get coffee and you have your own cup, sometimes they have a little discount program where they'll give you some change back. So good to know. But those are the first main items that I like to tell people, not tell people to switch out, but I encourage to switch out because they're one of the easiest. You save so much money not buying water bottles or coffee, so I highly encourage all of you to think about switching. Up next, I have a reusable cutlery set. These are about as tall as a pencil, I would say, or a pen, and I just keep those little packages kind of in all of my handbags. They're super, super cheap. That brand that I put up there is package free. I really, really like that website for a bunch of plastic-free living items. So if you want to check that website out, I highly encourage that. But if you are somebody who eats lunch out, say you work in a city or in an office setting, and you highly encourage getting a cutlery set. Next, I have reusable straws. Everybody's heard this before, but I wanted to mention my favorite brand is Simply Straws. So they're actually glass straws. And the reason I like these better is because I can see what's in my straws. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I like to see what is coming up in my straw. So I like the Simply Straws. They're glass. You can put them in the dishwasher, which I like too, instead of sitting there with a little scrubber. And a lot of places also do promotional deals. So I got both of these straws for free for sharing a Facebook post, which was really cool. And then last, for eating and drinking out, I have food storage. So this is something not a lot of people think about. But if you're somebody who goes out to eat often, like I was saying, if you work in an office or if you just like to go out to dinner often, but you know you're the type of person who never finishes their meal. I know I never finish my meal. My mom never finishes hers. I would bring a food storage container with you. That way, one, you can heat it up usually in those containers, and two, you have less waste. So I highly encourage that. Does anybody have any questions about this third of the section?
Yes, there are a lot of comments and a lot of questions and sidebar kind of conversations. I'm sort of going through them. One comment / question was just what you brought up, which is, so right now we all have to, well, don't have to, but we all our options for, dining is takeout.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do in those situations? And do you encourage people to bring their own containers for takeout?
I would first ask the company that you're buying from if they feel comfortable with you bringing your own storage container. I know sometimes, especially now, it's really difficult to do that. So in that case, I kind of pick my battles and see where I want to go. But you can always ask a restaurant or a cafe if you could bring your own containers and then they fill them when you get there. Or you can ask them if they have any plastic-free containers. So sometimes, I know I worked at a restaurant for many, many years. They had some styrofoam plastic containers, but they also had like a hard, durable plastic container that was a #1. So if somebody wanted something that was more environmentally friendly, I would give them the harder plastic #1 container so that way they could recycle it afterwards.
Okay. There was also some comments about Cape cups.
Cape cups?
The K-cups for coffee.
Oh, okay.
And question about, whether or not they're recyclable. Someone else commented about Nespresso cups, that they're aluminum, and the company will take them back to recycle. But I don't believe K-cups are recyclable.
I have never heard of anybody recycling K-cups, but I highly encourage. I used to have a Keurig. I would just buy one of those reusable, refillable K-cups.
Right.
They worked great. I actually liked them better because my coffee was a lot stronger with those ones. And then you just dump out the coffee grounds. If you have a compost bin, you can put the coffee grounds in that compost bin, rinse out the reusable K-cup, and just use it again.
Okay. Another question is, we hear all the time about, because it's impossible to buy food without it being wrapped up in plastic, and do you know or have you heard of any biodegradable food packaging that can take the place of plastic?
I haven't heard of any packaging that could take place, but I personally like to shop at like a bulk food store where you can bring your own jars, fill them up, but that's usually for just like rice and beans and things like that. And I know some ShopRites have a food, like a bulk food section, but also all Whole Foods have a bulk food section. I personally, and I'm just saying this, I'm sorry, the light is in my way too, I didn't realize that, but I like to shop local, so I'll do either a local farmer's market, a local produce stand, or like a local butcher shop, and I'll go and get my groceries from there, and most of the time, too, for the place you can bring your own storage for them to put the items into.
Okay. We'll pick up later with other questions.
Okay, next I have things that you can do around the house. So this is the one slide I was very excited about because of the stay-at-home order. So I want you guys to really go through all of your things and see where you can change. The first one I put up there, because it's such a simple fix, is a bamboo toothbrush. So I know some people say every 6 months you're supposed to change your toothbrush, but it's actually every 3 months. So I highly recommend getting a bamboo toothbrush because that's a lot of toothbrushes you're using. That's every single year. The next I have is a super, super simple fix, getting bar soap instead of bottled soap, either in the bathroom or even in the kitchen if you use hand soap in the kitchen too, any sink around the house or in the shower. But bar soap is really simple. I also find that it helps me not use so much product too, because we're so used to just dumping every single last bit of the product into our hands and then rubbing it everywhere. But the bar soap really helps distribute product and no plastic packaging too, which is great. And then I have cotton hand towels instead of using, if you're the type of person who uses paper towels for everything, I highly encourage looking into some cotton towels. I know some stores even sell them where you can roll them up onto an actual paper towel roll if you like the feeling of grabbing a paper towel and using just a small sheet. They sell hand towels like that. And then I have wool dryer balls. These replace regular dryer sheets that would normally go into the trash, and sometimes you can even put any type of essential oil in there as well. And then I actually saw this for the first time, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. I was watching a webinar from the American Literal Society. And Nicole talked about how she found different tops to go on her mason jars. I use mason jars for everything. I store food in them, so I thought this was a great idea. So yeah, they just sell different types of pumps to refill your hand soap. And in that case, it's really cute because it's a mason jar too. And then I also have refillable cleaners. That picture is from Clean-Colt. I really, really like that brand. They make it super easy to make changes, and they'll even sell like bundle kits where you can do a refillable hand soap bottle, a refillable cleanser bottle. They sell wool dryer balls on that site. So I really like the Clean-Colt site, and then you can sign up for either like a monthly or bi-monthly subscription to get all of your products refills. And then that last item I have is washer bags. So this goes back to the microfiber clothes. And basically what these washer bags do is catch any of those microfibers that would get into the drains in this bag before they get into our waterways. This one is from Target. It's super cheap. I think it's called a lingerie bag, or it's any type of delicate bag, and it just catches all of those fibers. But that's where you would check to see what exactly your clothes are made out of, and then you can assess from there. Sorry, I'm just going to move my laptop so the sun isn't shining in my eyes.
That's okay.
Okay. So yeah, those are the washer bags. Does anybody have any questions about the items I just talked about?
There are questions. If you wouldn't mind, Casey, opening up the poll.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Guys, we're going to open up the poll now. Casey still has a couple of slides to go through, but if you want to get started on that poll, you should have about, you have about 15 minutes to fill out that poll, and I see a bunch of you have already started, so thank you for that. And then, okay, so questions. Would you mind restating, you said the refillable cleaners?
Yes.
What is the name of, there's a website, you said?
Yeah. So the brand I found was Clean Cult.
Okay.
They sell a bunch of different, they have reusable or refillable hand soaps and then cleansers as well as laundry detergents too.
Okay. And someone is, if you could clarify the benefit of the washer bag?
Yeah. So the washer bags, you would put your clothes that are made of any of like polyester or plastic material into the washer bag so that if you're shed while you're washing them, all of those microfibers are caught in the bag and they're not put into the drains because they don't get caught in the filtration systems at the wastewater treatment plants.
Okay.
So you wouldn't need to put like your cotton fabrics in these bags. It would just be any type of like plastic, polyester, nylon materials.
Okay, and then there's another question here. You know, actually, it's kind of specific, so we can answer it in the chat. Okay, if you want to go ahead, we can get back to some of these questions later. Yep. Okay.
This is the last slide I have, and this is for groceries and food storage. So I have more food storage containers up there. I highly encourage, if you guys are looking for new storage containers, new food storage containers, to either get glass or aluminum food storage containers. Like I said before, and I will vouch for them forever. I love Marshalls, I love TJ Maxx, I love Home Goods. They have the cheapest glass food storage containers. My mom just got me one for Christmas from Target, and it was so expensive, but I know you can get sets of glass containers at Home Goods or Marshalls. So I highly encourage that. I also have up on there reusable produce bags. So if you are going to like ShopRite or Acme and you want to have all of your produce in one bag, I have these cotton produce bags, which I use instead of those plastic bags that they give. And also they're color coded, they're really nice. I got these from Marshalls, surprise, I know. But they're super simple and super easy. But if you don't want to buy bags, I know a lot of the times I used to just put my produce in my cart and then I would just wash it when I got home. I didn't even store it in a bag. So that's an option too. Continuing on with groceries, reusable grocery bags. I know it's probably difficult right now depending on where you're shopping. I've been going to ShopRite occasionally, but like I said, I hit up the local produce stands, the local farmers market, the deli counters, and I have no problem using my grocery bags when I get there. But I do recommend, especially right now, to just make sure you're cleaning them all the time, weekly. Next, I have reusable like seal Ziploc bags. I really, really like the Stasher brand of reusable bags. They come in a bunch of different colors, but they're microwave safe, they're dishwasher safe, they're oven safe, they're stovetop safe, and they're refrigerator safe. So they're really convenient because your food can be stored in there, but you can also cook your food in them too. So I really like that about the Stasher brand. And then last on the list, I have food wraps. So we were a family who used the plastic wrap a lot. So I started looking into beeswax wrap, and this is by the brand Bees Wrap. And basically what it is just a piece of cloth with some beeswax coated on the outside. And when it gets warm, it's really easily moldable. You can stick it on your items and close it, and then it kind of solidifies in the fridge. So I personally just use it in replace of plastic wrap, but I know my one friend, she doesn't have any reusable bags, so she uses these and just puts her sandwich or her nuts and stuff in there too. But if you don't want the bees wraps, because I know they can be a little annoying sometimes, I know companies also sell silicone tops. They're mainly circular, but I'm sure because they're silicone, they can fit on multiple different Tupperwares or containers. So I really like those as well. But yeah, that is all I have for groceries and food storage. And then I just wanted to end it on kind of a positive note that nobody can be perfect. I understand that. We still need plastics in the world. They are the most hygienic material, especially for medical use. They're super lightweight. They are needed, all your plastic materials right this second. But I'm highly encouraging you guys to make a difference and start a fire on how you can change your lifestyle and change your household too. But that is all I have for you guys today. I think I ended it a little bit later, but do you want to read off any other questions that we have?
Yes, there are other questions. I'm going to thank you so much, Key. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.